With game development ballooning out of control and game prices reaching nearly $100, something had to give. And now we can see that there might be a trend coming in the next few years. Everything old is new again. Slap on a fresh coat of paint and add online functionality and sell it for half of what a modern game would cost. It seems like $30 to $40 is the sweet spot for most gamers. So I wouldn't be surprised if more games start releasing around this price point from now on. The industry can't really support $70 games, especially with developers' budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars. Video games are so busy trying to be Hollywood that they're copying the same failures as Hollywood. Woke ideologies instead of good stories, and nearly $1 billion budgets in production, with hardly a chance at breaking even. There's a reason people aren't paying to see these movies in theaters and canceling their streaming services. The product is just bad. So when you spend all of this money just to create something that no one wants, that's a recipe for disaster. Layoffs are happening in Hollywood and the video game industry alike, and most films and games are being canceled. So what have they done? They just re-release the old stuff, in hopes that nostalgia will help their bottom lines. Disney tried it with re-releasing their latest Pixar films in theaters, but no one watched them because they were terrible films to start with. But for video games, we are getting a retro wave that seems to be just getting started. Tomb Raider Remastered, Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, Epic Mickey Rebrushed, the newest Contra, and I'm sure there's more on the way. It's an easy way to make some money with a game that they know people enjoyed the first time, but now for a new generation. And it's not like they haven't been re-releasing old games for a while now. A few Star Wars games have already been re-released, but maybe it's going to happen a lot more now, and probably will keep going that way for a little while. Sony said that the generation is half done, and that they're in their later years, so don't expect any big budget games anytime soon. And even then, what do they really have? Spider-Man again? Wolverine? So we'll have to make do with second party and third party games, like Helldivers and Final Fantasy, and remasters of old games for the time being. And I don't mind it as long as the games are good. But what was the point of making a next-gen system if they were never going to really utilize the hardware? Do we have to wait for next-gen to get games that are unique and have better graphics than the last gen for games that are just ports? Or maybe this is how the gaming world will stay, like PC, where people with old GPUs and consoles can still play the games but at lower resolution and graphics, even though you can barely tell the difference anyway. A lot of PS5 games that are cross-gen with PS4 don't really look that much better than the PS4 version. All that power for what amounts to a better PS4 Pro. But hey, did you hear that there might be a PS5 Pro? In any case, gaming is kind of all over the place at the moment. Big budget games and big budget prices. Little indie games and middleware games at half the price. Seems like the bigger the budget, the more buggy the game is. Maybe the industry doesn't really have a budgeting problem so much as a coding problem. If your budget balloons to $500 million to make a game that barely looks better than the last console, then you've got to rework your entire strategy. Hire people that can actually do the work instead of half-assing their way through it and hoping that they'll get to patch it later. It shouldn't take more than 4 to 6 years to make these big budget games anyway. But some of these games take nearly 10 years to make and still release with terrible bugs, making the game unplayable. The priorities of the developers and the publishers is skewed, and it's hurting the entire industry. So until they figure out their crap at Sony and Microsoft, the smaller studios will be picking up the slack and making games and remasters for about half the cost of the bigger studios. Let's hope that their success doesn't get to their heads. I doubt I'd pay $70 for Helldivers 2 or Palworld or any remaster of an ancient game, no matter how much fun it is. But maybe you would. Let me know in the comments. I'll talk to you next time.